allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Folks, will you please stay standing for a moment of silence for the men and women that are serving us abroad and at home? Thank you. Please be seated. All right, welcome to the Council June 20th meeting. We are now going into public comment. Can I get a motion to go into public comment? I think you don't need one? All right, we are in public comment. Tonight we have I guess we could do the Trailways group first, introducing Resolution 2011-11 relative to the redevelopment of the abandoned rail line. So I guess we should read that. All right, we're going to read that before we have you guys speak. Okay?
Resolution number 2011-11 relative to the redevelopment of the abandoned rail line. Today is the first reading, June 20th, 2011. Whereas the Londonderry Trailways has been actively involved in the development of passive recreation opportunities in Londonderry, and whereas Londonderry Trailways received authorization from the Council pursuant to Resolution 2010-15 to investigate and report on potential uses of the abandoned railroad in North Londonderry, and whereas Londonderry Trailways has positioned the town to pursue the redevelopment of the railway as a recreational rail trail, now therefore be it resolved that the Londonderry Town Council authorizes Londonderry Trailways to pursue the development of the abandoned railway as a recreational rail trail and coordinate development of a rail trail agreement with the state of New Hampshire and the town of Londonderry.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, folks. Actually, I should get a motion in a second, and we'll go into discussion on that.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, and now why don't you guys come on up and let's have a chat. Welcome.
I need the glasses to speak now. The eyesight's getting so bad.
Yeah, no, I've been going through that too myself, resisting the doctor visit.
That's right. Sandra Legue, 2 Fiddlers Ridge Road.
Bob Rimmel, 2 Fay Lane.
And we thought in the effort, like the greatest gift we could give you would be the gift of time. So we thought we would be extremely brief. How's that for a start? No long presentation. So just a synopsis. In May, as the resolution refers to, in May of 2010, we came before the town council and we were given the authorization to look into a lot of things related to the rail trail. In February of 2011, we reported back to the then sitting council a lot of details, history, whatnot. In the meantime, between those 2 times, we have gotten a letter of support from the Londonderry Recreation Commission, the sitting board, and we have gotten letters of support from the New Hampshire DRED, the land manager, managing body that manages the land that is owned in Londonderry, for the work that's sort of going on a smaller scale out there. And we've had community engagement meetings. We've had meetings with our neighboring towns. We've had meetings with the airport, and all of that was reviewed in the previous February report out that we did to you. And so today we come before you to ask you to vote on this particular resolution that allows us to take the next step, which is to start pursuing and looking into grants and donations. And no one's going to give us a grant and no one's going to give us a donation if the town isn't saying, we like this idea, go ahead and see what you can do. So it's not a request for money in any way today at all. It just gives us the ability to go out and start looking at things and talking about it.
Yeah, and this is, in Londonderry, we've got 6.4 miles of abandoned railroad, which is part of a 30-mile corridor. And all the other towns in the corridor and some other towns around the state all have a signed agreement with the state of New Hampshire, which is a rail trail agreement. Over the course of time, it's varied. Probably the first one that was ever signed was back in 2003, I believe, with the town of Wyndham. So at this point, we just want to take the next step forward so that we can start the fundraising process and have a legal binding document between the DOT and the town of New Hampshire. I mean, the town of Londonderry.
Okay.
And so this resolution just is about saying we'll get that process going and that dialogue going, and obviously the town has the right to say we don't like that line, or we don't, you know what I mean? That whole part still takes place in the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second, and the information from the rail trail people. So I read through it. I just guess we should get the council's take on it and see what you guys think.
Yeah, first I wanted to thank you guys. I think you're doing a great service for the town of Londonderry and the state, absolutely, by getting involved with this and trying to develop it the way you guys are doing. I did read it. I met with you, Bob. I think it's I think it's great. I recommend we go forward with it. I just wanted to, again, state the fact that I appreciate that somebody's going out there and doing this, and thank you guys.
Tom?
I'm all in favor of it. I met with Sandy, I think back in April. I think we went over things. I guess the only question I have is, assuming we authorize this, what's your next step?
It's a great question. We actually discussed that. And our next step is to literally start an Excel spreadsheet of what are our grant options. Short-term, long-term, small dollars, big dollars, what kind of a commitment, and literally start to do the research where we kind of come up with a grid of possibilities of what we would do next. So that's background research work. And then to get in touch with the people up at DOT that are sort of involved in this and say, hey, so what does the boilerplate look like? Can you send us a copy? And, you know, sort of see what, those would be the next two immediate steps.
And would it be fair to say that the plan would be to connect from Wyndham to Manchester?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, I'm all in favor of it. Thanks.
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to redevelop these spaces into active recreation usages, and so you have my continued support on this. Good luck.
Okay. All right. Councilor Farrell's running a little late. Yeah, sorry I couldn't get it's been really busy. Just so, not that it has any impact, but I just had, in addition to the family, I'm now a grandfather. So,
Congratulations.
a little busy. Thanks. So, trying to get caught up with people has been a little bit difficult. So,
Taxpayer.
yeah, another taxpayer.
Yeah.
But anyway, they laugh now.
Wait until you stop paying.
Anyway, I did get a look at some of the stuff that Dave sent the packet, and I'm well aware, as being on the council for 2 years and on the budget committee, and you guys do a great service. I think it's excellent that those abandoned lines are being, you know, people are trying to do something about them, because they are a valued asset, because there really aren't a lot of safe places to ride bikes and do that kind of stuff. And this would give everybody a nice shot of, you know, land to be able to do that on. So who knows, I might be out there myself.
Your grandchild.
Yes. So, but anyway, I've got no issues with it. You got my blessing. So I think you have a consensus here of 4-0. So
Take a vote.
we'll take a vote, make it official. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, chair votes affirmative. 4-0. Go get them.
Okay.
The gift of time. There you go.
Thank you very much. All righty. So, Andre, I hear you have some news for us. Step right up.
Just stand over here if you don't mind. Mr. Chairman, members of Town Council, I want to first thank you for allowing me some time to update you on some new happenings in the Community Development Department. On June 9th, the New Hampshire Planners Association awarded Tim Thompson the Co-Municipal Planner of the Year Award. And I can say that is a tremendous honor for any planner in New Hampshire. And this year, the number of applications received were a lot. They received a tremendous amount of applications for Municipal Plan of the Year as well as Plan of the Year. And with the selection process being with, and some of the hard choices that were had to be made with regard to who would be the top candidates, Tim and actually a colleague of ours, Ben Parker from Dover, were selected as Municipal Plan of the Year. And this was predicated on, Tim's been with Londonderry for 11 years, and his body of work over that time was one of the deciding factors. with regard to who received the award, with his involvement with the Open Space Task Force, which is something, I should say not the Open Space Task Force, but the Conservation Overlay District, which is one of the, probably the most controversial issues that we've had up to now, I should say. And talking about trial by fire, I mean, that was a difficult piece of legislation in the past, and I think Tom was there at the time where over 800 people showed up for that particular event, and there's something, and somehow we made our way through it. And also with this involvement with the 2004 master plan and numerous updates to our subdivision site plan and our affordable housing ordinance, and the list goes on. So when they look at that body of work as to what has been accomplished over the last 10 years, and somebody who deserves this award, it is my distinct pleasure to present, I should say represent, the 2011 Municipal Plan of the Year Award to Tim Thompson. And also, if I can ask his wife Jess and his boys Wesley and Casey to come up just for a picture.
My parents are just
That's all good. That's what this is all about.
bring them all up.
Exactly. Bring your folks up.
All right.
Yeah, Andrew, why don't you invite his folks up too for a picture?
That's a pretty nice accomplishment. Absolutely you should be.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, cheese again.
Nice job, Tim.
We get right into the.
Sure, that's fine. Thanks, Andre.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
That means he doesn't have to be here till, later. Hopefully we won't.
All right. Well, for part 2 of my presentation, this is my monthly update as to the economic development activities in the community development department. As far as projects are concerned, we're continuing to move along with the master plan. I think all the invitations went out to the various groups to form the steering committee. One of the things that we're going to be examining that was brought to our attention from Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission was a potential grant. It's called the Heart and Soul Grant, put out by the Orton Foundation. And what it does, I think it answers one of the concepts that I think the town council had hoped that the board would consider, and that is having a type of best towns process where we we actually delve into the public participation and examine some of the full spectrum of how the community can be better based on the input and values that we receive from the citizens of Londonderry. So this grant is kind of very public participation oriented. I mean, it really delves into you must develop a communication plan on how you're going to reach every aspect and every section of the community, and what also is centered around the values as expressed by the community and how we can integrate those values with regard to our the growth and the decision we make as a community based on that growth and based on the values established. So. Working with the Southern Hampshire Planning Commission, we're going to pursue the grant. The deadline for the grant is July 20th, and by September through November, they're going to be selecting community. So by September, we'll know if we're in the hunt, and then by November, we'll know if we'll receive the grant or not. And as we proceed with the steering committee, there are things that the steering committee can be doing in order to prepare not only for the grant, but if we're unsuccessful with the grant, this is still good information from which to launch our master planning process with. Moving on to funding projects. With regard to the Pettingill Road area, we're going to be meeting with, next week, we're going to be meeting with the some of the property owners out in the Pettingill Road area, those specifically involved with the layout of the road, and who we've been working with for the last 10 years, really to talk about the funding of that, funding of Pettingill Road. As you know, we've been looking high and low for funding for this particular project, but now we wanted to sit down with the property owners to see if there's other alternatives that we can be exploring to make sure that we can get funding and move forward with this project. As the board may or may not know, but the DOT has stated that the airport access road will be open by November this year. And if you haven't been out there lately, the intersections that we were, if the board remembers, back in 2002, 2003, were successful with getting the engineering funds appropriated for, was obviously with a lot of help from the Londonderry Housing Redevelopment Authority, to get engineering funds so we can engineer and work with DOT with regard to making a connection of Pettingill Road onto the airport access road. Well, the design that we came up with regard to that connection, one was approved by DOT, and also it's built. As you go out there, the stoplights are up, the pathways leading off of the airport access road into Londonderry are there. This obviously, once the pavement is terminated, this is where the Jersey barriers are. So it is built.
Interrupt you 1 second?
Dave, I still think it's a good idea for us, probably sometime before we get into the fall, for the council to have begin a meeting out there, and we can have a briefing on site as to some of the things that Andre's talking about to help, especially some of our new members, to get a better feel for the geography and what the area looks like and potential development and so forth.
That would be fantastic. It has changed dramatically out there, and I think a on-site visit on that would be great for everyone.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah. A lot has changed up there.
Yeah, you're not kidding, and a lot of potential. So that leads me to the resubmittal of the EDA funding application. Again, from the meetings with the property owners out there, and also to solicit, has there any activity with regard from their site with regard to potential prospects for that area? We want to uncover that, because I think that based on our meeting with the EDA regional director, if we have a bird in hand, obviously, who is interested in developing out there, or even have a strong consideration of developing out there, it will help supplement our application, our resubmittal for that. And I think with that in hand, I think we can be successful. But without that, I think we're right where we are right now. So now, as far as prospects is concerned, you know, we have some more activity. Obviously, have some recent activity out there. There is a tire distributor out of North Carolina, and when you see these generic topic titles, as you see on your sheet, the reason why they're generic like that, most of the time when we meet with any prospect out there, we're actually meeting with their site selector. We're not meeting with the people themselves. And so when you meet with the site selector, their client is the tire distributor, healthcare provider, or those tires that you know, they're in that particular sector, but the people that the actual people that actually are going to be purchasing the lot and whatever, you'll find out at a later date if they're interested in your community. So these people are interested. They were referred to us by the Department of Resource and Economic Development, and we have taken it from there. And we met several times. Actually, we met once with the group, but we've been in contact with them several times with regard to Londonderry, and you know, we're getting closer and closer to narrowing down a couple of sites. So we're hoping that continues to work out. As far as the healthcare provider, there is a group, again, introduced to Londonderry through the Department of Resource Economic Development as a potential, as Londonderry as a potential area for their facility. And again, we put together a nice packet for them with regard to parcels that would meet their needs. And again, we're hoping that Londonderry is, makes the top 3 list. And and also the Department of Resource Economic Development. It was mentioned, I believe, by Governor Lynch at one of the commencement speak as to a big manufacturer coming into this region. And again, we put our best foot forward and put information in for that as well. And hopefully, again, Londonderry will be successful in being one of the top candidates. There is an existing business in town called Heritage Automotive, which operates out of the Herald Square now. They're looking to expand within Londonderry and around the Jacksbridge Road area. And later on your agenda, I think you're going to have a first read on that rezoning from AR1 to I2. And that's an area that is consistent with the consistent with our master plan with regard to the I2 zoning in that area. And so they're seeking to purchase a piece of land out there and rezone it and build a 20,000, I should say potentially 20,000 square foot facility out there. And if you haven't noticed, if you haven't driven down Route 28 lately towards the towards the intersection of Smith Drive and Route 28, where the freezer warehouse is located, they've started construction. They were recently. I should say within the last 4 months, they were before the board for rezoning for that lot to be I2, was consistent with the use that's on the site, and they wanted to expand their facility, which is currently 60,000 by another 82,000 square feet. They purchased the property in front, and now it's under construction. It's been approved by the planning board, and they're going full bore. And lastly, as far as the marketing website, we are going to be making some additions. And in the packet of information, you'll find several sheets there. The first, after the front cover, you see the first sheet that says property listing. This is going to be a new component to the website. What we have faced with in the past was a lot of people are interested in what vacant land is available, how much is it, how much land is there, how much will it cost per acre or for the parcel, and really detailed information. So we went with a group that can provide that information, which is called Catalyst. And the first page is the search property by listing, and you see a bunch of categories there, such as office, shopping center, hospitality, industrial, farm and ranch, retail, commercial, multifamily, special purpose, vacant land. You check any one of those, it will give you Londonderry specific information on those categories. And if you turn the next page, as you can see, I checked industrial and vacant land. If you turn the next page, you'll find all the parcels of land that meets that category selected. And as you can see, each one of the addresses there that you see are specifically linked, so when you press on it, it gives you more information about the agent and who to contact and more specific about the land. But again, this is to answer some of the questions that I hear from prospects of what they're looking for, and therefore I just found a tool to meet that answer. Meet those questions, I should say. And other additions we'll make is, that the factoid section is not going to be a static section anymore. It's going to be a interactive sessions as we update the factoids about Londonderry. I should say the site is going to change to allow me to get in there and change those factoids as new information about Londonderry or relevant information is made available. We can put it on the site. The section of the site that is downloadable, or the information that we know that people are just looking to grab, we want to make that mobile enabled. So we realize that more and more people are using their smartphones and iPhones for a lot of things to get information
we just want to provide that ability on certain aspects of our site so they can take a look at the kind of the relevant information, the quick facts, and the this type of stuff that we just went over, the catalyst stuff, and so they can get that information on the mobile and in a properly formatted page. And the last thing is it's a simple thing. It's just adding the my phone number and email to the front page instead of having people look and have to press contact and keep on looking. We just want to make that a little bit more, a lot more easier. So that's what I have for updates this time around. Any questions for
Andre? Any questions from the council? Go ahead, Tom.
Question for you, or for Art, perhaps. In that, right near the freezer warehouse is that vacant strip of land that's behind the Triangle Mobile going south.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
There's been some recent activity that looks like, are they harvesting loom off of that property, or what? Do you know what's going on there?
It appears so. It was brought to our attention about a week ago, and I know that Richard is taking a look at that to see what's been approved. I know it hasn't been any approvals. There was a site plan presented, but never followed through with for that site. But there has nothing been approved on there for such an operation. So we're gonna
I had some
pursue that with their property.
people ask if that was the beginning of some construction. I said I didn't think so. It just looks like they're harvesting dirt from it.
Yeah.
I noticed it today coming back from the hospital. It's a huge pile over there.
Oh yeah.
Huge pile.
It's a good mound. So our code enforcement officer is pursuing that.
Maybe fix it. 5.
John, did you want to?
No, I'm all set.
All set? Okay. Tom?
I'm all set.
Good, Joe? Okay. Andre, thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Good update. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Keep up the
Nice
work.
website.
Okay. Any other public comment? Step right up.
Somebody forgot their paperwork over here. Pauline Karen, 369 Mammoth Road. I noticed last week that you launched a new town website, Virtual Town Hall. I have some questions and I have some comments. When was this approved?
When was the appropriation approved?
Yes.
It was part of the IT budget from this past year.
Okay. Did you sign a contract with Virtual Town Hall?
We did.
Could you tell me if that went out to bid?
We received how many proposals?
3.
3 proposals.
Could you tell me the amount of the contract?
$6,995.
Okay, how long is it for?
That was the update charge. It's about $2,700 a year. Do we have a length on that? Is this?
It's just a year. It's an annual hosting fee.
Okay, that was the next question I was going to ask you. That's the hosting fee? There are no other maintenance costs?
Correct.
Okay. Who is going to perform the updates?
We have employees here. They're going to, you mean to upload the information?
Yes.
We have employees here who have been trained and receive unlimited support from the company.
Okay. Is the present IT department have anything to do with that?
Nope. Besides emergency banner or something like that that needs to be posted. Otherwise, employees will be doing that.
There are photographs and acknowledgments of photographs. Did you have to pay for those?
Those photographs were donated by the photographers in town.
Okay, thank you. Now, another question I have is, under which department budget does this go into? IT?
IT, that's correct.
Okay. I was looking at the website. There are a lot of things that are missing. Even in the beginning, in town resources, you're missing telephone numbers for important departments: tax collector, town clerk, public works, and community development. Under official town documents, you have ordinances. What that document is the resolutions by the town council on different ordinances. In order to find the ordinances, you have to dig through records. You have to go to the land use regulations and then planning and economic development. I think you should have a link on the official town document ordinances to send people to that where the actual ordinances are. And also, the ordinances should have, under the text of each ordinance, you should have the date of adoption and the date of revision of each ordinance, so that you don't have to go sifting through the official town document ordinance. In addition, under email alerts, you have the Town Charter Commission. The Town Charter Commission went out of operation last year, so it shouldn't even be on there. There are a lot of minutes missing for a lot of the boards and commissions. I should think that when you open the new website, you would have transferred all of those documents from the old website. It was probably premature to open the website when you did with all the missing and incorrect information.
I think.
And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Dave, is some of the things that Pauline brought up, as far as missing information on the meetings and some of those links, is that something that's in process?
It is.
Okay,
That's correct.
all right. Okay. Are there any other comments? Okay. All right, let's bring it back to the council. We need a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We're now in public hearing. Okay, item A, receipt of unanticipated revenues from various sources and expenditures of those revenues for a variety of municipal purposes.
A motion that we accept the revenues as presented in our packet for a total of, excuse me, I just had it here a second ago. Where is that total?
114, 498. Page 8.
For 114,498, I think that's what I heard.
All right, we have John's motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Dave, do you want to give us a little background?
This is just our annual review and formal approval of any grants we received and donations over the year. This total is low this year, which is a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is usually if it's higher, it's some sort of FEMA reimbursement for a natural disaster. So we didn't have any of those this past fiscal year, which was good. The actual receipts are a little bit higher because if you recall, right before the beginning of this fiscal year, we formally adopted the receipt of the ARA grants. So over a 2-year period, we probably have received well over $2.5 million in grants. As you know, we cannot increase our expenditures. If we have a local match, it's got to be taken from the existing appropriations. We can't increase the expenditures to our town budget with local tax dollars. We have to use existing tax dollars for matches, and we can only increase the budget by the funds coming into the organization.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, seeing that, do we have any other concerns or questions?
No.
All right, all those in favor with the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Chair votes affirmative, motion carries 5-0. Before we go into the next one, Dave, do we have an update for the SAFER grant? Have we heard anything at all?
We have not heard anything as of this date. That's correct.
So what does that mean, other than not hearing anything? Does that mean we're not in it now, or?
Well, usually with the federal grants, if you're no longer being considered, they let you know pretty quickly. So, with the federal grants, no news is good news.
Okay.
But we've got Captain O'Brien and Chief McCaffrey still monitoring the progress of that.
Perfect, okay, thank you. All right, ordinance 2011-04, relative to amendments to the municipal code, adoption of Title VI, Chapter 6A, purchasing policy, minority woman business enterprise.
Motion that we waive reading and move to adoption.
Got a
Second.
motion? You got a second? Any discussion? Dave?
During the review of the ARA grant for construction of Northwest Fire Station, the federal government notified us we do need a policy in place regarding encouraging minority business enterprises and women business enterprises to participate in our procurement process here at the town. This ordinance essentially has been taken from other communities which were recommended for review by the federal government. Essentially, in a nutshell, it's that we'll make every effort we can during federally funded projects and for locally funded projects over $500,000 to encourage participation. Now, the way that happens is that the state DOT currently maintains a list of MBEs and WBEs, so we're just going to use their list. And if we're doing a construction project in which a building involved, then we'll send out a notice of the bids to all the folks who are on that list in those particular disciplines and give them an opportunity to bid. There's no requirement for us to award contracts to MBEs or WBEs, just make the opportunity available for them that they're aware of the project and they have an opportunity to bid on the project.
Yeah, we have a lot of that going on in my neck of the woods with my company.
Anything DOD.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
This is a public hearing, you really have to ask the public if they have any input.
Oh, all right, that's fine. Is there anybody out here that would like to discuss? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the council. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, next one we have on the agenda is Resolution 2011-05, relative to the allocation of cable franchise fees. That'd be great, if you want, thank you.
Resolution 2011-05, a resolution relative to the allocation of cable franchise fees. This is the second reading and public hearing for June 20th, 2011. Whereas the town has entered into agreement with Comcast to provide cable television services in Londonderry, and whereas part of the agreement requires the collection of a franchise fee, of which a portion is surplus to the needs of the cable division, and whereas the town council formulated its adopted fiscal year 12 general operating budget, which included revenues from the cable franchise fee to offset the community's property tax burden. Now therefore be it resolved by the Londonderry Town Council that of the 5% cable franchise fee, 1.5% shall be deposited into the general fund and 3.5% deposited into the cable special revenue fund, effective July 1st, 2011. So,
Second for discussion.
We have a motion and a second for discussion. Bring it to the council.
Discussion. So since we've made this motion, Dave can share what we've learned about how we can and we can't use this revenue. But if those of you who are here recall that during the budget process when we used money from the cable operating fund, we were reminded of a resolution that had taken place several years ago. This is strictly viewed as look at all revenue opportunities. It's an idea, not necessarily whether I'm in favor or not, but it's an idea so that we can have more revenue readily accessible to us. What I've learned about this from Dave is that even if we don't do this, it doesn't mean we can't go use it again in the future. This more or less cleans up the books a little bit. And then Dave learned some other things about it as well.
Yeah, there was a consensus developed at the public hearings that there would be about $104,000 transferred, or actually focused from the cable franchise fees to the general fund to help with municipal operations. And there was also another proposal to reduce the manpower level from 3 to 2. And the consensus was to go ahead and agree to the estimated revenue of 104 from the cable fund, but maintain the staffing level of 3 for FY12. So this resolution simply reflects that policy decision as recommended by the town council and approved by town meeting with the adoption of the FY12 budget.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought it was, because I thought we had, that's what we had passed back at town meeting.
Right.
And then the meetings leading up to.
Right. What was in the newspaper this morning wasn't,
Not quite correct.
well, it was one point of view.
Okay. Tom?
I'd like to hear from the public, see what they think about this.
Sure.
That's fine. Why not?
Okay, all right. Anybody out here that would like to speak to the ordinance in front of us? Pauline?
Pauline Karen, 369 Mammoth Road. I don't think you should take any of this. This is the franchise fee paid by the people who subscribe to cable for their benefit. by taking this money, you're giving all the town taxpayers who don't have cable the benefit of cable franchise fees. And that's not fair.
So Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but Pauline, the way it's been explained to us is that this is really more of a fee for right-of-way use versus, and I understand the people who are using cable use it, but it's a fee for right-of-way use. That's the way it's been explained to us. I'm not trying to correct you, I'm just trying to tell you how it's been explained to us.
Well, when the cable franchise fee was initiated, was the right-of-way brought out at that time? How come it's never been brought forward till this time, this year?
We can't speak to former councils and what was in their minds, so we don't know. We're
Do you
trying to
have-
make this right now.
Do you have a franchise agreement with Comcast
We do.
that explains it? The right-of-way?
What the contract simply says is that the Comcast will include a 5% franchise fee in its bill.
Okay, and as I stated before, that's paid by the Comcast customers for the benefit of the Comcast customers, not for the benefit of all the taxpayers in town who don't subscribe to Comcast.
Well, can I just make this statement? This was decided back in the last budget season.
I know.
Well, let me finish. So what we came out of that was we were going to cut one position. People in here, some of them,
Including me.
including you, were all for it to save
No.
that position. Hold on, let me finish. They wanted to save that position. That was brought up to us from them as their idea to do that. We agreed to it. It was also passed at town meeting. So this is what we're trying to do. So if you're, and I can tell you as one Comcast subscriber, to me, this isn't a big deal.
No, because you only pay a few bucks a month.
I pay a few
But
bucks
it's-
to a lot of things, but
I
go
do
ahead.
too. But if you take all the Comcast customers as a whole, you have more money, which is what you're trying to divide up now. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Dottie, you wanted to come next?
I think the public should speak.
Okay.
Thank you. I probably have something to say later, though. Hi, Cindy Eaton, 16 Clark Road. I have a question. Is this resolution just for this year, for the 2012 budget?
No.
Or is this intended to carry on for many years?
This is intended to carry on for many years.
Okay,
Point of order?
But it can be changed.
But it can be changed
I
in the
don't
next-
believe, I don't believe it, we can formally encumber future council. I think this is a policy issue
For us.
that could continue on, but doesn't necessarily have to.
Correct.
Would it be
Well
fair to
put.
say that it's going to stay this way unless it's changed by a future council?
Exactly.
Okay.
so,
To that point, it's going to cover the position that would have been eliminated otherwise. So take that into consideration.
so is that position going to be part of the monies that's going to the town then? Is that going to be an ongoing money transition?
At
Transaction.
this point, yes, that's what this is designed to do.
And what is the other money that's being taken out from that
That would
being
be
used for?
Yeah,
Is
if I
it
can
for
just-
cable purposes?
If I could just clarify, okay. Going back through the process, there was a dual recommendation, is to reduce the staffing level to 2, and to also allocate $105,000 or $104,000 to the general fund from the cable franchise fees. Okay? And so what the consensus was after numerous public hearings was that the 3 positions would remain for this year, to look at again next year, be funded from a cable franchise fee. However, the town would still have $105,000 or $104,000 from the franchise fee revenue starting in this fiscal year into the general fund as opposed to the cable special revenue fund. Now, next year's budget process is a brand new process. Tom is correct. If the resolution is not changed in the subsequent year, then that allocation will still occur. But there will still have to be a separate policy decision with the formulation of FY13 budget regarding the staffing levels at the cable studio. That's part of the annual budget process we go through.
Okay, I understand that. And I was one of the people who was for keeping that employee and taking it from the cable franchise fees. But, and if you want to continue doing that, I see that as a cable money issue and not so much as, you know, the town budget. But I am concerned about the 104, 105 that's being taken out because, you know, many years that we fought to get the 3.5 that it used to be to the whole 5% for the franchise fees, just as the lady before me spoke about cable customers paying that and how that should be fair to them, and they are the ones who should be deciding where the money goes, not as the whole town. So we finally got it to 5% to all go to cable. But now I'm hearing you're going backwards to the 3.5%. And so I have a problem with that. And I would really like to see this resolution only last for 1 year and come up again for a revote if necessary, or continue with the 5%, unless you're going to use the money for cable employees or cable equipment or the studio or any other programs that pertain to cable franchise fees. So.
Good. Hold on a second. Dave? Out of the budget, who pays for the upkeep of the cable building? Does that come out of the cable access studio fees? Or is that,
Well,
is that the taxpayers?
The cable actually takes care of minor repairs. If there are any major repairs, they probably come from the Expendable Maintenance Trust Fund, which is
Okay,
general
which is
fund.
by the taxpayers?
That's correct.
Okay.
Right.
How about salaries?
Well, we haven't had any major repairs, that's correct.
That's fine.
Right.
Okay. How about salaries?
All the other operating costs are paid for by the cable special revenue fund,
Okay, so
franchise fees.
that all comes out of there?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for answering. Tom?
Just to review what last year's council had developed as a notional plan, because I think it's just a reminder of not necessarily where we're going to go, but at least the plan that was on the table at the time was with the proposal to reduce staff by 1. The plan was to hold it to 3 until Dottie retired, and then reduce it by 1. As she retired, she wouldn't be replaced from a headcount standpoint. So not to say that that's what next year's council is going to do. She said that was the notional plan that was on the table. So I don't want to leave it in the public's mind that the maintenance of the staffing level at 3 was not, at least at the time, wasn't the plan as an evergreen policy. It was to delay the reduction from 3 to 2 by a year. The council, it didn't make sense to reduce it by 1 and then have Dottie retire, and then to go from 3 down to 1, and then have to go on an employee search to try to find someone to fill out when we had 2 very qualified people currently on staff. So that was the thinking process. Now, will it eventually go from 3 to 2 with Dottie's retirement? And that's not to force her out. She still has a decision to make, and she may decide not to retire. But if that's the case, that'll really depend on the makeup of the council at the time that decision is presented, and it could go, as elections change things, and so decisions could change as well.
Okay, well, I'm just voicing my opinion that the cable franchise money should be kept for the cable studio and equipment and all the other things that it's used for. and, you know, I don't understand why the town is taking 104 out of the cable franchise when it's not a cable issue. So, I expressed.
Dave, can I ask a question? Sure. Am I correct that it's not legally required that the cable fees go to a special cable fund? They can go to the general fund, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And sometimes they do that, and the cable people are paid employees of the town. Okay. The second question I had is, if somebody wanted to, I understand this is a policy decision, it's until changed by the council goes forward, but for example, the next election, if somebody had a citizen's petition that said, we want to change this, can people change revenue allocations like this, or can they only change expenditures by petition out of?
Confirmation from town council on that.
Okay.
I don't want to say yes or no at this point, because I'm unsure at this point, but.
So what I'm asking is, if you wanted to get a petition together to see if you can change the policy
Well,
by the voters.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused by that because, yes, I understand that a petition could be passed around and sent in for that purpose, but it was a town vote at a town meeting to move it from the 3.5% to the 5%. So now the council has the right to change a town vote? I don't understand that.
Maybe Dave can speak, because
Well,
I'm not sure I read.
What I can tell you is that town meeting has approved budgets for the last 3 years with some degree of cable franchise fees as an estimated revenue. So that's the policy statement we've been operating on for the last 3 years. I think it was 2 years ago. It started at 40,000. It was 40,000 this current year, and then it's planned for 104,000. That's been the policy document from the voters at town meeting for the last 3 years.
So because that's been happening the past 3 years, that means that that's a legal way to handle this issue when town meeting votes for 5% over the 3.5%. I'm not understanding who has the right here, the town meeting or the town council?
Well, we have resolutions in the past which have gone from 3.5 to 1.5 adopted by the council, and then back to 5 adopted by the council. So this will be the third resolution we have on file in which the council made a policy decision regarding the allocation of franchise fees.
So you're telling me that the council has the right to make a policy resolution which will overrule the town meetings?
And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this will be the third resolution adopted by a town council since the late 90s in which the town council has established the franchise fee allocation.
Mr. Chairman? I think that the difference, I understand the point you're trying to make. I think the difference is at town meeting, they made a decision to collect 5% franchise fee. What they didn't specify, though, is the allocation and expenditure of that 5%, which I think that which is on the table now, we're kind of cutting that up, that 5% up. And I think what Mr. Frieda alluded to is that what town meeting might be able to do, and we'll need to get confirmation from our town council, is that it could take that next step to fence the allocation of that 5%. Say all 5% must go to the cable, or some 4%, 1%. You know, so that we believe town meeting raised it to 5%. We don't believe town meeting mandated how it should be expended or how it should be allocated. And I think what Tom Frieda has suggested is that maybe
A petition.
maybe the town meeting could address that. I would before you get too energized around that, though, I would wait until we had some legal response on that. And if a petition goes forward, as always, you really should bring the petition language to the town Because we've seen in the past that people have spent an awful lot of time and effort collecting signatures around
To make sure that
a
it's
petition
a
that's
legal
not
document.
yeah, it's not legal, it's not enforceable, and they get very disappointed and disheartened by that, so.
Right.
But you get plenty of time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I had a question about, if I could, this pertains to Article number 8, right? Which was in the 2011 warrant articles, right? In regards to the surplus. And I think what the last person who spoke was talking about is that it says that any surplus in said fund shall not be deemed part of the general fund accumulated surplus and shall be expended only after a vote by the legislative body. So we're not the legislative body, right?
That's correct.
So I think that's what I think she was alluding to, is that, do we have the authority to do that?
That section deals with expending surplus funds in the cable, currently in the cable special revenue fund. What this resolution does is that when the franchise fees come into the town coffers, a certain percent will go to the cable special revenue fund. At that point, they'll be used for cable operations, or say there's a surplus, a portion will go to the general fund to be used for general fund purposes.
So that basically says what we do with it once it gets into the coffer, not before.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I'm a CPA, and that took me about, 3 or 4 times of hearing that before I finally figured out what you're saying. And
we did good.
well, yeah, maybe it's just me that I'm slowing the uptake, but do you think that somebody who's reading that really understands that, before it gets there, you're kind of diverting it?
When they read that language?
Yeah.
That language is straight from the state statute.
Well, I
That's
understand
the
that, but
problem.
I
Clear as
go to
mud.
town meeting,
Says a lot.
and it says, nobody's going to expend the surplus funds. It says shall. I mean,
Right.
you shall not expend the surplus funds.
Yeah, unless it's reappropriated by town meeting. That's
I
correct.
mean, I'm almost a, used car dealer kind of,
But it's treated the same way our surplus funds are at the town level.
Right, and I'm just saying, if you're not reading it 3 or 4 times and understanding that, well, it's before you actually get into the fund, that we're gonna divide it up first.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, I think the intent was at the meeting to not spend it. But that's
Well,
just me.
If you look at the resolution, the resolution says the town council of the 5% cable franchise fee, 1.5 shall be deposited in the general fund and 3.5 deposited into the cable special revenue fund.
That's
Yeah, that's what this resolution says,
Right.
but not the
That's clear.
article that was
Right.
passed at
So
town
what the
meeting.
article says is that, as an example, I think it's Article 8 you said, is that you're gonna spend $300 and something thousand for cable.
366, 657.
Right, and then what it says, you wanna spend any more for those related purposes, you have to reappropriate it through the town meeting process.
I think it also says that, if I may, it also says that if over time the cable fund builds up a surplus, it's got a $500,000 surplus, we just can't go in and take it. It has to be expended only through the town meeting process.
I think that's clear.
So we said that the 1.5 was to go back to save one of these positions, right? That's what we're kind of saying?
No.
No, that was my take on it, and that was corrected.
Let me clarify it.
Okay.
Okay? There were two components in the FY12 budget which impact the cable operations. One was to utilize a portion of the franchise fees coming in just to offset general operating costs for the town government. There was another one which recommended reducing the staffing level from 3 to 2. Okay, totally separate. And during the numerous discussions during the public hearing, a consensus was developed that, go ahead and divert the 104, but keep the staff level at 3, as Tom correctly recalled, until the cable director retired. And so that was the consensus which was adopted by the council and ultimately part of the budget which was presented at town meeting.
So, but I just heard that that's going to kind of, so why are we, Sean, you're saying you're not?
So, hold on, so now that you said that, so that was the direction that this council took, the 3 of us plus 2 others. Now we get 2 new people.
Right.
So, does the money that is being diverted, well, proposed diverting, is that also going to go to fund that position?
No,
No.
no, the $105,000 will go into the general fund. The rest of the revenues will go into the cable fund to pay for cable operations, which this year includes 3 positions.
So
So
the
the follow-
104,000 basically is tax relief, about 3 cents on the tax rate, if I remember.
That's correct.
So the 3.5 would fund the complete running of the cable center plus the 3 employees? And
It
wouldn't
would
have
go
surplus.
contribute to the operations of the fund, of the cable division.
Because what I was also understanding by reading is that, you know, there's a certain amount of money that has to be spent to maintain it for a year, and that would include the three people, right?
Right.
And whatever equipment, electricity, whatever it is, building maintenance. So is this 3.5 going to cover that, and in fact, the 1.5 would be a surplus? Do we know that?
3.5 will not cover at 3 employees.
Okay, so we can't.
Cover at 2 employees.
It will cover 2 employees, that's
So
correct.
again, I'm not an attorney, but according to this, we can only touch surplus, and if it's not going to cover that, maybe 1.5
No,
is
it says you
too much.
can't touch surplus.
Can't touch surplus, that's totally different.
We're not going after surplus.
What we're doing is, there's 2 different things on the table. That was then, this is now.
I understand that.
This is the before part, meaning
Right,
before the funds
right.
get there,
Okay.
we're saying that this is where we're gonna put X and X.
Yeah.
That means that if there's anything left over, we can't just go in and raid that fund. So that's what it's designed to do, I think, right?
Right, and my understanding is from the discussions we've had, is that going forward at 3.5% for 2 employees, they're funded. That's my understanding. So,
That's correct, depending upon the equipment budget, which is variable every year, but that's correct. At 3 employees, 3.5% is not sustainable over the long term.
I mean, we don't have to do this. We can always go back year after year into it and do what we did in the last budget.
I mean,
I think this is just trying to make it cleaner in some way, if that makes sense.
I'm very, I mean, I'm just to throw this out there, I'm very uncomfortable having something out there, as I said, in the last meeting we had, I think even on 321 and 66, that I'm uncomfortable doing this for perpetuation. I'd like to see this be rewarded in some fashion to say that it's only for this fiscal year. I'd be much more comfortable, based on the economic position that we're in. I mean, hopefully next year will be better, but I don't want this just to continue at a 3.5 clip. I mean, I think it should take each council, as I think other councils have alluded to, some, you know, councils change and other thought processes come in, and I don't think we should lock in a 5%, lock in 3.5,
Well,
in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
my thought on this is, where I was going with my other question when I asked Dave was, this building's gonna start to get older, okay? So as the major repairs come up, that's gonna come out of regular taxpayer funds, okay? And those people may or may not have cable. So to me, this is a wash over the long haul, and that's how I look at it. Because, you know, pay me now or pay me later. Eventually, it all ends up washing, in my mind.
But from a legal perspective, like, for example, we collect over $5 million in motor vehicle permit fees.
Mhm.
Those do not go into a separate fund. We collect about $500,000 in building permit fees. That does not go to a separate fund. So cable franchise fee is a little bit unique in that a portion of that goes into a special fund for a dedicated source, but most of our revenues do not. The only requirements, for example, we receive about $500,000 in highway block grant. That's got to be used for highway purposes. Well, our highway budget's $3 million, so that, you know, we're certainly within that realm of regulation. But so what I'm saying is that there's a number of different non-property tax sources which the town collects every year. Ambulance fees is another example. We collect about $500,000 in ambulance fees. It goes to the general fund to help support town operations.
Now, the other thing too, I remember you showed us a while ago, because this has come up many times before in the past 5 years, in some shape or form. So in the past, I think you presented us documentation that shows us that a lot of other towns, whether it be cities, towns, are already doing this.
No, some towns.
Some of them don't even put it into a cable access.
Some towns put it all to the general fund. Some towns put 100% into the cable fund, and some towns do a variation of it. I mean, it's all over the map.
So, to me, I don't see this as a big deal. You know, I know that certain people aren't going to agree with me on that, but that's just my 10 cents.
As long, if I may, you know, if, my interpretation of it is that as long as we're not affecting the cable operations as we understand them going forward, the 3.5% puts us in a position where we don't affect the cable operation going forward. If the 1.5% puts us into a position of where we can put one more cop on the street or one more fireman on a truck or something along those lines, then this is a good thing. If we're doing it for any other reason, you know, then, you know, let's just leave it and we'll go to it as we need it from year to year. But it's just an idea of how to keep the right employees in the right places. And I don't think it even would have ever even come up if Dottie had not come up in the budget process and said, geez, I'm going to retire. I think that's how we sort of got there. Oh, sorry, Dottie. I wasn't looking to blame you. I just trying to just never mind.
All right, Tom.
Sorry about that.
But to your point, John, I think that we just said a few minutes ago that 3.5 doesn't cover it, so that's...
No. For 2 employees, it does.
For 2 employees it does, but we have 3 right now. So that's my only point.
All right,
I'll
Tom
let Dave answer the
Tom
numbers.
Frieda had a question.
That's correct.
Go ahead, Tom.
Does this reflect sort of what we did at town meeting, and now we're kind of making it a policy going forward?
Exactly. That's all it is. The decision's already been made by the voters as the budget recommended by the Budget Committee and the Town Council. And if the council doesn't approve this resolution, then your operating budget has a $100,000 hole in the revenue side, starting July 1st.
So that means that basically we're starting off in the hole, boys, so.
You have to,
So just for
Take on an
clarification,
employee.
the 3 employees are covered for next fiscal year.
That's correct.
Beyond that, at 3.5%, 2 employees are covered.
If you continue with this policy in the future, and you continue with a head count of 3 in the cable division, at some point, that accumulated surplus will be reduced down to 0.
But if we
Because-
continue with 2, we're covered.
You're covered. Again, depending upon the equipment budget, but you're covered.
your ins and outs of the same.
Okay, that's what I was trying to understand. So, and so this resolution helps us cover next year, and then the years after that is 2 people. I'm sorry, Marty.
So the consensus made during the budget process between everybody participating for FY12 was, yes, use the 104 to defray operating expenses for the town, recognizing the state of the economy, but also maintain the manpower level of 3 at the cable division.
Okay. Marty?
Good evening, Marty Bovee, 3 Tinkham Lane. Good evening, council. Susan, David, Marco, good seeing all of you. I've sat there, I know what you're going through. I know how tough it is for the budget. I know you're looking for all kinds of revenue to try to offset the taxes as best as possible. I commend you for that. But I'd like to back up a little bit and go back to the fact that I've dealt with this issue for 9 years, and I think I have maybe a little bit different perspective because I was the cable access coordinator. I mean, I worked with them as the town council liaison. And I remember back when the cable studio was thrown out of the high school. They didn't have a budget. They didn't have a huge budget. They were thrown out, and they were forced to build that building. And over the years, we have given more to the community than anybody could have ever imagined. How much money have we given to the school over the last 10 years, David?
Well, the cable division has given the school a $7,500 grant for 6 years.
Right, and that wasn't supposed to be perpetual. That was supposed to be a one-time deal. But yet, every year, they came back and we gave it to them every year. The studio used to be used by the public, and the school could use it. Not a problem. We don't see any problem with that. But as a cable subscriber and as a town resident, my ability to use that cable studio has been curtailed because of the school becoming involved and taking up time that maybe I could use. Now, wait a minute. No, this has to do with it. It has to do with it.
Get to your point, though, please.
My point is this. You keep on picking at this, and I totally disagree with you. The town did not agree to this. They agreed to the budget because you agreed to put this money from the town council, from the studio, into the budget. They never agreed with this 1%, 1.5%, 3%, 3.5%. That's bogus. That's not an agreement that the town made, okay? If you people would understand that this studio, how important this studio is to this community, you would fund it totally. And I'm not talking about 2 people. I'm talking fully at three people. And you can do that with the franchise fees you've got. And the cable studio has never, the cable group has never said no to the council if we had excess money and you needed it. Dottie came forward and offered you money to help save people's positions. But I don't think that that was at the risk of just giving up what is needed at the studio. You need 3 people there. You need an individual like Dottie, whether it's her or somebody else who replaces her, to deal with all the issues with the cable company, with all the issues from the customers who call all the time. She can tell you. I don't have to tell you about that, and you've heard of this before. You have Drew, who does an tremendous amount of work that I'm not sure you guys even understand how much he does. And certainly Erin, the work that she does, and the training that she does. I'm bringing this forward because I don't only want you not to take this money away. I don't care if you take surplus. Fine. And you're talking about repairs. Well, you know what? Within that money, within that fund, within that reserve, there's money you could use for repairs. But you want to take it away. And you want the people, the cable studio, to say, well, the taxpayers are going to pay for that when it comes time to fix the building. Well, that's bogus. That's ridiculous.
I don't think it's ridiculous.
The money is there in the cable fees to take care of all those things. They don't have to buy, and they never have gone out and bought excess amount of equipment just for the sake of buying equipment. Okay? They have funded and they have people working there who are dedicated, who do a fantastic job, and who have made this the premier cable studio in the state. And I don't care what you talk about other towns giving their franchise fees. Most of those towns don't even have a cable studio. Where else is their franchise fees going to go? Okay? I'm talking about the larger towns who actually have franchise fees, who actually provide the service that this cable studio provides to all the people in the town. I don't think that this thing should be passed. I understand why you're trying to do it, but at the same time, I don't believe that this is a mandate by the town, by any stretch of the imagination, okay, to reduce the cable studio to something less than what it is today. Okay. This is not funds from the taxpayer. People at the cable studio, if they're paid by the cable access fees, that takes care of them. If the access fees aren't there and you have to reduce staff, I could totally understand that. Totally understand that. But to take this kind of money, or even presume that you're going to be able to take this kind of money on an ongoing basis without assuring the people who pay the cable access fees, and even the citizens who use the cable access, okay, that they're going to be able to have the same kind of services over the years to come that the cable access fees can provide to them, I think is a total disservice. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead. Step right up.
Got my squeaky boot on. I can't sneak up on anybody anymore. I've heard things that I agree with and things that I don't quite. But what I'd like to do is share with you, there are a number of people who've spoken to me over the last few weeks about this, and there is some confusion. What Pauline was talking about earlier, as far as subscribers subsidizing taxpayers, that is a subject that was brought up by John Sylvester many, many years ago. He is the king of translating how that works. But basically, you're talking about a situation where maybe you're only paying $3 a month, Sean, on your subscriber fee towards the access fund. But that money is going into supporting cable activities, and therefore you're not subsidizing anything that any other taxpayer is doing. If it goes into the general fund, the thinking is that that means that now your cable fee, small as it may be, is actually helping to subsidize the taxes that someone like the new Market Basket doesn't pay. I didn't see any televisions there the other day, so I don't think they're helping us out on the fee at all. So that's that's sort of the quick logic behind how people feel about that. And it is one of those things where it's a matter of perspective. Everybody has to come down in their own place on how they feel about that. But that is a very common perception. And I also would just like to clarify as far as the process and how the franchise fees have been changed as to how much we got and how much we didn't get. The initial agreement way back in 82, 84 was that 2% of the franchise fees would be going specifically to support the studio, which was located in high school. Everything was paid for. The only thing that had to be done in there was to help pay for the salary, which was very small because they weren't working that many hours, and also any equipment purchases. There was nothing else that needed to be paid. That changed when, as Marty just pointed out, it became necessary for us to leave the high school and build our own facility. And that is when it came up that we should change that percentage. The first change went from the 2% to give 3.5% as a dedicated fee to the cable department. And then when we actually got the okay to go ahead and build the building, the people were very vocal at that meeting and said, well, what have you been doing with all the money? And I said, well, I'm not getting the money. And that's when they said, we want 5% to be dedicated to the cable department. So this isn't something that came from just a cable subscriber or just a volunteer at the studio or just somebody who likes to make documentaries. It came from the taxpayers that were there and voting in the year 2000. And I know things don't go on forever, things change. And I think that's where we are. We're at a place where things have changed. Now, I'm a little bit confused, and I'm going to need a little bit of clarification. My understanding, and perhaps you're the one to do this, Dave, my understanding is that a resolution is a policy, and that policy is in place until it's either rescinded or changed. Is that correct? Right. So that would mean that since 2000, the actual policy for the town of Londonderry is that the full 5% would go into the cable special revenue fund. That happened until 3 or 4 years ago, I'm not sure, when we started taking $40,000. It was a one-time $40,000, it was going to save a job. It was another one-time $40,000, going to save a job. I'm not somebody who's going to stand up and argue, let's not save a job, especially when you're talking to me about a firefighter or a police officer or some other safety issue. This past year, when I got my first copy of the budget, I was a little bit concerned because it said annual transfer to the general fund, $40,000. I'm not sure how we went from we need it right now to annual, but that's what I'm concerned about here tonight. You have a resolution in front of you, and if you pass a resolution, that becomes a policy. If nobody does anything about it next year, it continues on as a policy. I totally understand the economic times that we're in, and I think that the people that have been talking to me understand that too. Even though they are absolutely prejudiced in favor of all the money staying in the cable department, they understand that sometimes you can't do exactly what you want to do, and you have to listen to what's going on, and you have to kick in and help where you can. Again, if I understand correctly, an order is a one-shot deal? Okay, is that correct, Dave?
No. I'm sorry?
Is an order a one-shot deal?
An order?
Yeah, instead of a resolution or an ordinance, an order?
Depends how the order is structured.
Okay, so there's no, I thought maybe I had finally figured them out. No, I didn't. Okay. Well, I would suggest something that if this is something you really feel that you need to do, that this $104,000 needs to go forward in this way, then I think you should do it just for this year. Do it on the basis of the fact, or even do it after July 1. Do we even know yet what the actual revenue implication is going to be from the state's budget? Do we have those numbers yet?
Well, we've been told we should not have any additional impacts upon the town.
No additional?
That's correct.
Okay, so we may be addressing something that we don't really have to. I don't know. But what my thought was, if you feel that you have to do this, do it once, do it effective because of the economic times that are in effect on July 1 when you move into the 2012 budget, and that's it. Next year, if you have to do the same thing again, you have to be responsible leaders of your community. If you have to look at this and say, we just can't justify putting this revenue and dedicating the entire thing again this year, then look at it and make an educated judgment as to how much do you need to make the difference that year. And I think that that's something that your community would look at you and say, that's a responsible way to behave. But to just take it because it's there, and that concerns me. Another thing that concerns me is kind of on building on what's been said here about the warrant article. I have found that not only have many of the people who have spoken to me been confused about that, but I have as well. I read that warrant article, and I've read it over and over again, and I think, Tom, you're the one that just made the point. No matter how many times I read that warrant article, I don't see the little tiny print that says, unless we decide to put some in another revenue source, it says that it won't be touched. Now, the fact that it's in a budget document, I grant you, the taxpayer, the voter, they should be educated. And sometimes that's from us, and sometimes it's some self-education that has to go on. And maybe everybody should have gone and dug a little deeper and looked at all the line items and went, oh, 40,000. But I think they would have only seen 40,000. I don't remember seeing 65 on there. I remember 65 being the number that was used to represent the training coordinator's position. But I don't recall that that was specifically put in or taken out of that budget when it went to a vote. So that would be just another point that I would want to make. I think it's important that we don't confuse people. It's not that, it should not be that complicated. I know that we went from 2% to 3.5% to 5%. I know that for real. I know it for a fact. We can go back and we can say that. I know that there's been a resolution in place since the year 2000 that says that that 5% is dedicated and goes into a special revenue fund. Despite the fact that that's a policy that's been in place, that's not exactly what's been happening. And some of that money, which Marty was alluding to a little bit earlier, has not gone all to the town side of the government, which is fine, we can share, but we've kind of stretched that, and I did it willingly, stretched that definition of cable services on the town side and actually gave a lot more than $7,500 a year to the school department. We gave a $20,000 a year startup grant for them. Where's my drink? I'm getting dry. We also gave them 3 rooms over at the high school where there are robotic situations over there, and we built them a tower that can be moved from room to room. A lot of money was spent on all of those things, and we still remain open to helping them with other cable-related issues in the future. We can self-sustain if you let us. We can do that. We can do that even if you do decide to take that $104,000 for this one-shot deal. We also can, in the future, moving forward, and you won't have to stand at my back with a gun. I am going to retire, but you can also maintain a 3-person outfit over there. Part of the whole deal with my leaving is I've been here for well over 20 years. That means that the longer you're around, the more they pay you because you've just lived longer, I guess. But that also means that I'm getting paid more because I've been here longer. You bring a person in who's starting, you're not making that kind of money. So you reduce that amount in your personnel, and you can still have 3 people in that facility. At the very least, I think you should give whoever is in charge the opportunity to look at a budget, make up their own mind as to whether or not they feel they can sustain the budget with 3 people and maybe cut back somewhere else. Because a lot of times, especially, well, it happens in a lot of places, the people are more important than the stuff. If you've got the people, you can keep things moving. So I think that's just something that I want you to keep your minds open to moving forward. If you give me just a second, I want to see if I get everybody's comments in here. Talk to a lot of people. Ordinances, resolutions. Okay. It had also been pointed out that the state RSA that talks about special revenue funds also says that they cannot be expended or transferred without the vote of the legislative body. So that's something else to keep in mind. I just think that maybe if this happens, do we do town meeting next year? No.
Yes,
we don't
do.
have one, or we do have one more? I thought that was our last one.
Well, we have the new system, but it's still,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
deliberative session.
We have
and
deliberative
official
session.
ballot, but
Okay.
there's still an opportunity to
Well,
discuss issues.
at the very least, if I can make a recommendation, and I'm a short timer, I should be able to do that. At the very least, I think that it should be carefully explained to people what these things mean. Even if you think they know, don't assume they know. Go ahead and explain it to them. I think the last point that I would want to hopefully drive home, in addition to the, do this as a 1 year only, do it on an as-needed basis, and make it, justify it the way that you can justify it this year, and then come back again in the future and do it again if you need to do that. But I think that one of the things that I would like to remind you of is I was reviewing the goals that you're setting. And under your town council goals, objective number 3, enhance communication with the community. Hi, I can help you with that. We can do a lot with that. I have been rather bewildered as to why, just as an example, Woodmont is having their meetings over at Woodmont. They should come over and have them at our place, or have them here, and they can be on television. I know they've had like 6 or 7 people on a Saturday morning, which is very nice and cozy and good to talk and get those people really well educated. We can do that with a lot more people. And it's repeated so that more and more people get a chance to see it based on what their time frame works out. So that's a goal that we really would like to help you with, and we'd like you to keep us right at the top of the list of people who can help you do the communicating with the community. That's what we're good at. That's my spiel.
Thank you, Dottie. Okay. I don't see anybody else in line. Back to the council. Okay. Joe, I'm passing the gavel. So, seeing we've talked about enough and heard enough, consensus that even we're getting from Dottie right now is that, and from Joe, so here's an idea as part of a compromise. So what about if we change this resolution to make it a one-year deal, and we'll take it 1 year at a time? Is that an option that we can take?
We have to do something, or else we're $104,000 short. So that's what Dave's told us.
Okay.
Yeah, when I went through the budget approval cycle last year, this was kind of a package deal, if you will, a compromise that I agreed to. Do a couple of things. One, to help with the revenue shortfall we had, but also to help save a position in the studio, which I thought was not wise to lay somebody off, especially in the face of a pending retirement. I do agree with some previous testimony about a fairness issue here. This is an issue that I'm not really in agreement. I don't think it's a good idea. However, I feel obligated to follow through on a commitment that I made in public earlier during the FY12 budget season. However, I was moved by some of the testimony tonight, And I would certainly be amenable to changing the language so that this doesn't become a recurring policy, that this sunsets after the FY12 budget, which will force the next council to revisit this to see if it's something that we should continue. So I'm open to that idea.
Joe?
I'm still not, call me dumb, but I just don't understand how this was voted in. Is there any way you could walk me through, Dave, how this was voted in as $106,000? I mean, I know I'm not trying to extend this thing another 3 hours, but I'm just not connecting the dots, so I don't know if you could just describe it really quickly.
The original budget proposal suggested reducing manpower from 3 to 2.
Okay.
Adding those projected savings from that position being eliminated to the level which the cable division was annually supporting, at least for the last 2 years, the general fund. So the support would go from 40,000 to about 104 and 105,000. And there was a significant discussion about the wisdom of both of those actions. And the compromise, which Tom alluded to, was that the town would use $105,000 in franchise fee revenues, and they would maintain 3 positions for FY12 and look at it again when Dottie retires.
Okay, so if we pause there, there's already 40, so you can't really say it's $104,000, it's only 60 if we don't do this, right? Because there's already 40 already coming in.
Well, no, because the 1.5% represents $105,000.
Okay.
So if this doesn't pass, you've got a $105,000 hole in your general fund operating budget.
Excuse me, but I'm confused. The special revenue fund warrant article was passed completely, and that included a transfer of $40,000. So isn't that already transferred?
No.
So all we're looking at is the 65?
What 65 new dollars, what's going to happen is that it's going to go to the general fund when it's collected.
So the whole thing?
So if there's a
40 plus
$40,000,
65.
so if there's a $40,000 line item in your budget for a transfer, that would not occur, that would stay in your budget.
Okay, but okay. I won't spend it, I
See,
promise.
that's what I was getting at. So it does include the funding for that position.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, so
Plus
I was
the
right.
40,000 twice.
Okay,
It's all in how
so
you
now
ask the
I'm not
questions.
crazy. All right.
Just something else I found interesting here was there's actually a definition of franchise fees. You guys might find this just somewhat interesting, but just to paraphrase, basically what they're saying is that if the cable operator's use of occupation of public property, the public's rights of way, and that this is viewed as a rental charge, not a tax. But that was just something I'd share with you. I thought that was interesting.
Definitely
So,
not a tax.
just, that's the way it's clarified, you know. So, what do you want to do?
Yeah, go ahead. It's all yours.
I think we have to vote for the 104 because frankly, we counted on that at town meeting. Okay, and I think we owe that as a commitment to the voters that showed up there at town meeting. So, I'm in favor of doing that. I'm more in favor of changing this to a one-year resolution, and for a slightly different reason. If we start putting money, if we start allocating 1.5% to the general fund, then next year we're gonna know we're gonna get whatever 1.5 represents, and it's gonna be a line item, and that means we're not gonna, you know, we're gonna be counting on that, and we're gonna not look for other sources, so. I'm not saying, Dottie, that next year I'm not gonna do it.
Understood.
Because I'm not gonna be in favor of laying people off to, you know, for the cable. But I think we've got enough experience here to, if we need it, we can make the resolution, and we don't need to make it a policy.
Can we amend this?
Yeah, so here's going back to what I passed the gavel over to Joe. So Tom just wrote what I was thinking of doing. So at the end of the resolution, we can put, now therefore be it resolved by the Londonderry Town Council that of the 5% cable franchise fee, 1.5% shall be deposited into the general fund, 3.5% deposited into the cable special revenue fund effective July 1st, 2011, and expires on June 30th of 2012. And then it has to be revisited by the next council. So is everybody okay with that?
That's fine with me. That's okay with Dave.
Oh, sure, I mean, you know, from a practical perspective, whatever you folks decide when you develop your FY13 budget, and whatever's approved at town meeting, you'd have to either change this or keep it the same, depending on how the voters, so.
And in essence, that discussion's going to be had anyway.
Yeah, so limiting it to 1 year has no impact upon operations whatsoever.
All right. So, we are...
So moved?
So moved. So, Tom's motion?
Second.
Second. All right. So, discussion? Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Chair votes affirmative. Motion carries 4-1.
Do we have-
So, it's amended for a year.
Sandy LaGue gave you a gift. I'm going to give you a present, okay? So anything you want to communicate for at least the next year and a half, let me know. Get it out there for you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Resolution 2011-08. Dave, that is, we just need to vote to continue that?
I received a call from TF Moran, representing Public Service in New Hampshire, in which they asked that the public hearing be continued until July 11th. They told me their intention is not to locate the mobile power transformer at that location, but they want to, again, communicate with the abutters and develop a plan and come back. Based on our conversation, I think they're still going to request the town abandon that portion of the right-of-way, but they don't have any intentions of locating the mobile substation at that location.
So is it safe that we can table this resolution for now?
I would continue the public hearing until July 11th.
So moved. Second.
Would you still take public comment at this time?
We're in public hearing.
Yeah, well, we are in public hearing, and he came here to talk, so, sure. Yeah, absolutely, yep, sure, no problem, Bob.
Bob Sarr, 4 Mountain Home Road. And I apologize, I tried to make the last public hearing on this, and I came in just as the PSNH was leaving the room. So I did have a hallway conversation with them, but I wanted to share this with the board as well. Class 6 roads in Londonderry represent an opportunity, just as we discussed earlier, the opportunity with the right-of-way and the rail trail. These are connectors to various parts of town. Some of them, as you look at them today, have some potential potential uses that are obvious, and some of them have potential uses down the road. Kelly Road, which actually runs from Mountain Home Estates, crosses Mountain Home Road to Shasta, to Mammoth, to Otterson, and then to the Nelson Road Fields, actually could be a very interesting trail to connect several neighborhoods into the school complex, into the town center complex. Continuing on the other side of Nelson Road Field, it actually runs down to Alexander and into Century Village. Most of that is all Class 6. On either end, there's actually active segments. In particular, this section of Kelly Road represents an opportunity to avoid two major obstacles to putting a trail in. One is the wetlands that are underneath the power lines abutting Mammoth Road, and a very busy business entrance on Shasta for a thriving tax-paying business in the town. And I have spoken to the owners of that business and described, the potential for a trail behind there, and they said they would be in support of that. So, for this particular item, I would just ask that if there's an opportunity, and as I requested the PSNH, to maintain some public route through there as an option, and nothing that's on the table today, but I think that there's a business opportunity here to provide services that PSNH is, some additional resiliency that PSNH is providing. There is some business value in that and value for the community. But there's also an opportunity here with that trail and keeping it as an option for some point if we decide, the council with the town decides to move forward. And I would also just point out that Dragonfly, formerly Springley, could be interesting depending what happens with the Woodmont development, trolley car right-of-way, which parts of it are public land, Scobie Pond, which I know you looked at several months ago and decided, I guess, not against it, and Codeville Road, a portion of which is Class 6, all represent potential opportunities. So as you look at these, I would just encourage the council to think about other uses that may make sense down the road. Thank you very much.
Hold on, Bob. Tom?
Bob, do you know, have you spoken with the Trailways group? Do you think they'd be willing to sponsor a follow through with this? I mean, if we were to make this change the thought on here and make it available for trail, to think that they would capitalize on that? And
I guess right now I'd say I'm pointing out that I am speaking as a citizen. To be honest, my house is on Mammoth Road, I'm sorry, on Mountain Home Road is 2 properties from Kelly Road as it comes onto Mountain Home Road.
No,
And I do
appreciate
occasionally
that.
ride my bike down there.
I appreciate that.
Trailways has looked at opportunities to extend the school trail, the town center trail, both as formerly paved trails and as just packed dirt trails into the neighborhoods. We tend to work with the neighborhoods as we can and see if there's interest. Last year, or I guess it's about 18 months ago, we spent $1,700 of Trailways money to put a bridge through wetlands in the back of Nelson Road so that there's access down into King Philip. And that's been a very popular trail back through there that was all permitted. So we do look at those opportunities. There's opportunities at Woodbine coming into the back of the middle school. And I forget the other name, another road over there that runs off of Woodbine behind the middle school. There's opportunities that we've looked at before, funding for before down on Pillsbury Road. To be honest with you, yes, there may be some opportunities there. I know at least one member of the school board told me that he'd be very interested in seeing us extend the school trail northward. It does give people, particularly after school, if you keep the kids off of Mammoth Road as that trail did, and they don't necessarily have to be paved for most of the school year. You can use the trail as long as it's dry. And I will point out, by the way, that Kelly Road, even though it runs through wetlands, you can pass through there even in the spring floods. You can pass through there, and except for a little bit of water in the ruts, you can keep your feet dry on that from Otterson all the way north.
And I don't want you to feel conflicted because of your near abutter status, but I think it would be at least an interesting question. I should have thought to ask it while Sandy was here earlier, but that would be an interesting thought to see if the Trailways would view this as a potential project.
I guess the answer is we would. We look at all of these as potential projects. We tried to get funding for the extension from the Moose Hill School down in Pillsbury to the Windsor Road. And we tried to get funding, not from the town, but some state funding for that. We lost out the $400,000 to Derry and Wyndham for their rail trail, and Salem, I'm sorry. They got $1.2 million because they get prioritized above us. So there is, opportunities for funding out there. Some of them would be for formal trails that would be paved, as what you see in front of the schools today. Other ones would be what we have behind Nelson Road, which is just a nice packed dirt trail that we put a bridge through the wetlands, and it's a very usable and very popular trail back there.
I guess what I'm suggesting, it would strengthen the argument. If we have the power company here petitioning us to abandon a road, and there's very little, if any, opposition or thoughts of why we shouldn't do that. If there is a community interest to do something different with that rather than just abandoning it, I think it creates a scenario to at least give us some more food for thought as an alternative use than just abandoning it.
Well, if I may just add a comment on that, the difficulty that we had is that when this was with the Trailways making a statement on this, is that my last board meeting occurred after this was officially announced or initially announced. However, there was no detail in the announcement, and PSNH didn't publish anything except that there was going to be a public hearing about this. I actually took that up with PSNH and said, if you could put this on your website, even what portion of Kelly Road, because it wasn't clear until your last meeting about this, what portion of Kelly Road or what they were proposing to do with it. It was just a blind agenda item. So I have not had a Trailways board meeting since then, and so I can't speak on behalf of Trailways, but it is certainly something that I've got a meeting in a couple of weeks. We could come back with a statement on our interest in doing something there. And again, it's not something that's short-term for us, but
we're going to hear this on the 11th, so if you can maybe come back to that meeting.
We will try to do that.
I had a question. Bob, you can wait. Dave?
Yep.
Am I confusing this with the other road we're trying to discontinue? Are we not sure we have any rights here? Because I know that there was some question about whether...
Well, this road was voted discontinued subject to gates and bars, I believe, in the 60s. The previous one was
32
in the 30s. That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. So, then we do have something, because I thought they were saying on the other one that, whatever rights we have, we may not have them, and
That language is recommended by town council for all discontinuances, because unless we receive deeds for subdivisions for the road, so we know we physically own the property. A lot of these are just, they've been established by years and years of use, and we have very few legal documents showing our ownership of a lot of these old roads. So that's why town council recommends the language, whatever interest we may have in it.
okay. Thank you.
May I just ask a question? I mean, what I do is I look at the tax maps, and Kelly Road is identified as town-owned.
Yeah, that's not a legal parameter you want to look at.
Probably have to go to the registry.
Right.
Okay.
If just,
Yeah,
it'd be difficult if you apply for a grant and you find out, you don't know.
well, certainly, yeah, certainly before we went to the grant, we'd have to,
The state may not have a deed for Mammoth Road. It's been there for so long, as an example. So, you can't rely upon the tax maps exclusively.
Okay. Thank you.
No, that was it. Thank you. Just
Thank you
wanted
for
to
your
clear
time.
that up.
Thank you, Bob.
Mike Speltz, 18 Sugar Plum Lane. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for taking a little testimony here, even though the hearing's going to be continued. But I've been waiting here for a while, and I wanted to make the point that there is a continuum of solutions to PSNH's problem. I understand their viewpoint is they've got equipment there and liability, and they want to limit public access. So asking for discontinuance is an obvious choice on their part. But as Bob made the case very well, and you could go on and say there aren't any good alternatives through there because of the wetland and Mammoth Road. There are things short of discontinuance that can be done. You can change the road from a Class 6 road to a Class 8 trail, which makes it easier to have only pedestrian access, which is probably one of their bigger concerns. You can come to an agreement with them whereby we discontinue the road, but they grant us a perpetual trail access, which, given we could work out the terms to make sure that it did what Trailways needed it to do. So there are a lot of options, and what I'd encourage the staff to do between now and July 11th is work with PSNH to look at some of these other alternatives that will both serve their purpose of limiting their liability and the rest of their equipment, and at the same time achieving our purpose of maintaining this connection between the schools and North Londonderry.
Well, one thing I wanted to update, I don't think we brought that up, was Dave informed me today that PSNH is no longer going to be putting a station or a substation up there? Mobile substation.
Right.
So that, I guess they still are discussing whether or not they want to approach us about the discontinuance, I guess, but
Right.
they're no longer considering putting that up there.
Which strengthens our argument.
Mhm.
Right. Thank you, Mr.
So,
Chairman.
thank you. Appreciate it, Mike. Yes, sir.
Tom Pajak, 333 Mammoth Road. Currently, I think I'm the only abutter here that has showed up, and I really do wish PSNH would have contacted me and told me that they weren't going to show up. I do have other commitments on a Monday night.
I don't disagree.
How did your discussion after the last meeting go?
Pretty much, they said they would get a hold of me.
And did they?
No.
Okay.
So that's why I'm wondering, with the next meeting, is there any way that they somewhat forced to notify me? To make sure that,
you might have scared them off. They're not going to put the...
well, from the sounds of it, we may have if they are not going to put it. I mean, they already had approved plans to put the unit out behind the house, not in front of it. So that was, that goes back a few years, so they may be re-looking at it and figuring out how they really can do it now.
Yeah.
Dave, is that something that they should be notifying them?
Well, if you want to leave me a number, your email address, we'll let you know whether they cancel for the July 11th. But right now, they've requested to be heard on July 11th.
Well,
So
the
if I
request
hear
was
it,
to
then
be
let-
heard tonight, too.
Well, no, what I'm saying, though, is that if you leave me some contact information for you, and if I hear otherwise, I can notify you.
Dave, do we have to honor the request?
To what?
To He's asking if we can table this tonight, or should we honor it? He's asking, do we have to honor that?
You're not legally required to honor their request. It's something that the council's done
Because, I
in the
mean,
past.
say for, I'm just throwing this out there, if the council was very, very much against doing this right now, and there wasn't gonna be much more testimony that was gonna change their mind, you know, I don't know if we have discussion and kind of see if we get this going now, or table it, or move it, or whatever. I mean, because I have my opinions on it, but I don't know what the rest of the council thinks about it.
The only thing I'd say is they're probably the third highest taxpayer in town. I think just as a courtesy, we probably want to just let them come back if they want.
I just think the 7th hour was kind of, to your point, you know, the 7th hour kind of changing it.
Yeah.
You know, we're up here to weigh both sides of it, so. All right, so why don't you please provide Dave with your information? If anything changes between now and then, he'll let you know.
I can do that.
And I really don't understand why they wouldn't have contacted him, because I thought when they left here that day, they were going to leave and talk, and it doesn't sound like they ever did that.
Yes,
I can't make a
We had a
force
brief,
go to- yeah.
brief conversation out there for about 10 minutes, and they said they would get a hold of me.
Checks in the mail, too. Okay, so I guess right now, we'll just vote to.
And all I can tell you is what they told me, they like continuance to complete the discussions with the abutters. That's
Well,
what they
maybe
told
they'll
me.
be contacting you within the next week or two.
Good luck, I'm on vacation in
Do
another
you
week.
have any contact information for them? Because maybe the gentleman can contact them, you know.
Sure.
Anyone
I don't have it with
plan
me
on July
now,
11th?
But if you give the town manager your information, he can give you their information, and you can go bother them.
And if I can't get a hold of them and I miss the meeting,
Well, we have your opposition, you know. We know.
right,
you-
but if, say that, I don't know how
Can't be
this whole
here on
thing
the
works.
11th.
If I didn't show up tonight and they did, this could have went right through, even though I argued it last week?
Not necessarily, because we do have our concerns about it.
Okay,
Sir, if they show up here and you're not here, I'll ask for it to be continued.
thank you.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. Have a good vacation if you're not around. All right, so the request by PSNH is to move this to the 11th. We have addressed the abutters' concerns, so I need a motion to move this to the 11th.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of moving this to the 11th July meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Chair votes affirmative, 5-0. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Public hearing.
I need a motion to come out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Chair in the affirmative. Okay, moving to old business. Dave, FY12 goals and objectives.
These are the golden objectives which the council reviewed a few meetings ago and wanted an opportunity to take a second look at before taking final adoption. It was essentially a culmination of all the objectives and goals as submitted by all 5 councilors into, I believe, 4 separate objectives.
All right. So, has the council had a chance through all these we've been moving this out, Is everybody pretty much okay with what we have listed? Do we have any additions or subtractions, anything?
Yeah, perfect.
Let's start with you, John.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm fine with it. I would, this may be just semantics, but I think objective 1 ought to be grow revenue before anything else, but that's, maybe that's just semantics. But I'm good.
Okay. Tom?
All good?
Tom?
I'm fine.
Joe?
Excellent.
Okay. All right, and I looked them over. I know what you're saying, John, but I think that we know.
Yeah,
We get
I'm
it.
just, you know,
So I think we're good. Okay, so Dave, you get a council consensus, so the goals, objectives look really good. Thank you. Appreciate you taking the time back when you did to get those in order and consolidate. Okay, can I get someone to read Resolution 2011-10?
Sure. Resolution 2011-10, a resolution relative to adopting rules of order for the town council. First reading 6/6/2011, continued first reading 6/2011, and adopted 6/2011. Whereas the town council adopted revisions to Title I of the municipal code at its May 16, 2001 meeting, and whereas Section 5 of Chapter 5 requires the town council to adopt rules of order not inconsistent with town charter. Now therefore be it resolved that the Londonderry Town Council adopt the attached rules of order. And can I waive the reading of the rules of the order?
Second, move
Okay.
and waive the reading.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Looking for adoption tonight. I've read these over. It kind of just, it looks like it really mirrors what we already do. It just kind of puts them into a form. So, that's my only take on it. I guess we'll go through, Tom? Did you?
Yeah, I have several suggestions for
Okay.
amendments to it. If you go to page 27 in the packet, which is under D, Rules of Order.
Yep.
Subparagraph 2, subparagraph parenthetical A. Just as a, and these are kind of administrative, Dave, the language in there assumes that our meetings are always on Monday.
Correct.
And we sometimes have meetings on Thursdays, sometimes on Saturdays. A thought would be to, in the sentence, the first sentence, the words "before Wednesday at 5 p.m. prior to a Monday." A suggested change would be 5 calendar days prior to a meeting, and that would take into account Thursday meetings and Saturday meetings. And then at the end of that paragraph, where it says included in each council's packet by Thursday at 9 a.m., if we change, instead of saying by Thursday at 9 a.m., if we just say by 4 calendar days prior to a meeting. That would make it generic, so it would apply to any day of the week we had a meeting. Next change that I'm suggesting is under the role of chairman. The second bullet reads, "to recognize members entitled to the floor." I would add to that, "and to assure all comments from the public are directed to the chair."
Okay.
I think it just as a matter of explanation, I think we exercise better control of the meetings when the questions from the public are filtered through the chair and then go horizontally right or left as the chair or as a member wishes to comment or whatever, rather than having one-on-one discussions or debates with each member of the council directly with the public. I think it would present better. And I have these written down, Dave, if I can just give them to you.
I'm good so far.
All right, and then an additional bullet under role of chairman, to facilitate public comment during that portion of the session. The chairman will assure members of the public are treated with respect. Another comment I had under conduct of meeting on the next page, page 28 of the packet, under paragraph 5. There'd be a subparagraph D added, and the title would be public comment. And it would read, "the public will be allowed to provide input to the council during the session. These comments are to be directed to the chairman and are not intended to be a platform for debate." Again, some context. I think that sometimes we give the impression that when public wants to make comment, that we're pushing back on them in such a vigorous manner that it discourages people, and some people are intimidated by that. I think the public comment, this is just me speaking, but the public comment session should be almost a listening session for us to hear from the public without a lot of pushback. We should ask questions for clarification, but I don't think we should be engaging in debates with the public or unless there's something said that's, it shouldn't be said. I mean, the chairman has a responsibility to say, hey, wait a minute, that's, you know, not right, you can't be saying that in public. But I think that we should, in our rules, we should state that public comment is not public debate, it's not a workshop, it's not a give and take with the public, it's a time for us to listen to comments the public want to give us, and we can do something with those comments later, I think.
I think a lot of the time, too, when some folks stick, when they get to the mic, they're...
It's
we
some
have one-
stage fright.
Yeah, well, not just that, but I'm saying, sometimes people, when they get up there, they're gonna stop and they're gonna ask us direct questions, and they want answers. And then they're gonna wait. We had one person here tonight that's done that to us in the past, and she wants an answer, and she's gonna sit there and wait for
I
it.
think that, and that's up to the chairman how you want to deal with that. I would personally tend to try to discourage it, just say, tell us what you want to tell us, and I tend to not want to treat it as a Q&A or,
I agree.
you know, this is a complaint. This is, you know, you don't want to change the title on the agenda to public complaint.
Mhm.
It should be public comment.
Okay.
Under paragraph C, and that's in that same paragraph, under motion to reconsider, I think that's good language, but I would add a final statement to that would, a final sentence, say motions to restrict reconsideration are not permissible. I've seen that used in meetings. I think it's inappropriate. I think the way the legislation is written, it's intended for school board meetings, you know, the annual meetings and the town meetings and so forth. It's not meant to shut down debate in these types of smaller settings.
So you want to strike that one?
Now, I would add a sentence that says, after the word counselors, the last sentence in C, I would add another sentence that says, motions to restrict reconsideration are not permissible.
Okay.
Tom, even though when you do that, it's only good until that meeting ends. You still want to...
But the way the legislation is written,
just trying to understand.
reconsideration is it's intended for annual meetings. It's not intended...
Okay. Trying to understand.
Page 31 of our packet, paragraph 10 under that same major under, you know, section D, paragraph 10 entitled Request for Information. I would add a sentence after the word, the agenda, the phrase, the agenda is set, period. I would add this sentence, requests by counselors for legal advice shall be channeled through the chairman or town manager. In the context, why I'm suggesting that is I don't think we should have individual counselors causing an attorney by fee, which is the way our attorney works, to expend money individually. So I don't think that I should be able to call up our town attorney with a legal question and have him start spinning the time clock and start charging the town. And I think the chairman, make that request to the chairman, I have a legal question, or to the town manager, especially if I have a legal problem with the chairman, I should have another outlet with the town manager. So we have had issues a long time ago where that was a problem, and we get the meter spinning on our town attorneys from all different directions. Page 32 of the packet, paragraph G, titled Appointment to Councils and Commissions. Paragraph 1, I would preface the paragraph with the words, at the council's organizational meeting, comma. So it just puts a time period of when to...
So you're saying we'd extend that vote to also assign the committees at that point?
No, I'd say that right now that it says the chair's going to request the members the choices of committees. I would say that we should specify that happens at our first meeting.
Because right now it does first full meeting, right? But you're talking about the one that's the organizational meeting?
Right, and I think that at that meeting, that whoever is elected chair should say, you know, those of you on the council should speak up and specify where you want to serve, and if that information is brought forth at the following meeting, that's up to the council to decide how to do that. But I would just say that it just puts a time period of when we should start that process and not.
Do you mind if I jump in there? The only thing about my opinion would be is that, speaking as a new counselor, you're just kind of getting used to what's going on, and it's a little bit overwhelming, and it takes a little bit of time to kind of get used to everything. So maybe that time in between.
You want to say by the second meeting?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we should put a date or a time limit on it. You know, the second meeting would be better, if you don't mind me adding that in.
Okay, I can live with that, the council's second meeting. It's a lot. I'm done.
It's all right, it's all good. That's why we're all here. No, everybody gets input.
Those are good.
Okay, so Tom's done, do you have any?
No, those are good.
No, I think those were good.
Okay. All right, so that's pretty much it, Dave. I don't have anything else to add.
Tom, excuse me, a comment on the public comment. Do you have that language? That's the only one I missed.
Yep, I have it written down here. I'll give it to
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
The bottom.
All right, so all those in favor of the motion, the resolution plus Tom's addendums, vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So with the amendments as Tom presented, and Joe. Okay, C on the discussion item tonight, discussion regarding the use of Conservation Commission funds for debt service payments. So, Tom, you brought this forward. Why don't you tell us what you were thinking?
Yes, what I was hoping to get a discussion about is, over the last couple of years, almost every department in the town has been asked by the town manager or the town council to absorb some budget cuts in their operating budgets. And I think it's only fair that we start to look at the Conservation Commission's funds and ask them to contribute some of their funds to the debt service the town is paying on the bonds for the Conservation Commission. I believe, let me check if it's, I have here, for 2012, the debt service on open space bonds, I asked Sue to get this information, will be $901,000. And in 2013, it's projected to be $880,758. I just think, in fairness to the taxpayers and to the other departments, it's really difficult to look at reducing public safety operating budgets, library budgets, or any other, while the Conservation Commission continues to be immune to these types of economic realities that we're all facing. So I would just like to have a discussion about that. I know we asked the town's attorney, and he said we can ask the Conservation Commission for this kind of relief. It's entirely voluntarily by them, but I think they should be brought into the discussion as well. So I know Mike's here. Maybe he wants to speak on that.
Let's keep it to the council for now.
Okay.
Joe, do you have anything you want to add to that? Nope. Tom?
I understand the request, and it's been in as part of a discussion for a while now. Let's not forget also, though, we have, because of the economic times we're in, the community has already cut or not approved, depending on your point of view, $1 million from this account, by not willing to accept any additional long-term debt under the current economic times. So there has been at least, it's not money that was in a fund that was cut, it was just not approved. Not that changes what's being proposed. I'm just saying that I want to just keep that in the context that we've already, as a community, pulled back from. At one time, we were doing $1 million a year. We stopped that a few years ago,
and the most recent vote went to the voters as a bond that they disapproved as a message to the town, at least at that time, that they weren't willing to take any more long-term debt on for this purpose. So I just want to add that to the context of the discussion.
John?
I'm okay with asking. I mean, you don't ask, you don't get. So I don't know what their reaction will be, but I think, you know, we're in tough times. I have no issue with asking.
Just also wanted to add that in addition to the taxpayers picking up a significant, and I don't know, maybe Sue can tell us what the, you know, approximate yearly interest charges might be, like $200,000 or $300,000 on the bond debt service for open space. The Conservation Fund continues to get the annual LUCT tax revenue exclusively, which is, you know, average between $100,000 and $200,000. So they have received funds during the same time, again, when everybody else cut back. I wasn't on the council last year, but, you know, Dave, maybe you can recall. Was it 5% you asked town budgets at the beginning of the budget season, town departments to look towards cutting?
That's correct.
Okay. That 5% at the library is a lot different than 5% at the police, but it's still a significant amount of money. And I'm not asking a lot, just some kind of relief for the taxpayers on this.
Okay.
And some kind of shared burden by everybody in town.
Okay.
Question? So on those multi-purpose bond that we did, remember the multi-purpose bond? How would we, at this point, can you segregate out the open space piece of it? You know, at least from an accounting standpoint?
What I did for calculation purposes is I took all of the different projects that were in that multipurpose bond and took the total that was allocated for open space divided by the total of the bond issued, gave a percentage that would be allocated to open space. So for example, the first one, which was 1.6 million, 61% is allocated to open space based on the size of the bond for that year.
Okay. And then you take that percentage to the unpaid balance,
Yes.
determine the.
And that's how I came up with the balances for each one.
All right, from my standpoint, I agree with Tom and John. I think that if you don't ask, you don't know, so I'm willing to ask. So, Mike, did you want to speak to it? I'm assuming you didn't want to sit here till 9:15 just to listen to us procrastinate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
May just ask, as a preliminary question, Sue, does the $900,000 principal interest calculation include the $2.5 million for the Nevins buy down or not?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
That is really not so much an open space purchase as it was a buy down of the development at the Nevins. We got a small piece of land under easement under that $2.5 million purchase, but the restrictions on it are pretty minimal, and they haven't done a very good job at taking care of it. So, you know, I'm not surely you'd want that to count in the 900,000. I can give you two reasons why, and I can only do this from a personal standpoint right now because the commission hasn't obviously deliberated on it. But I'll share with you these two reasons. Number one, if we were to do this, there's currently enough money in the conservation fund to roughly support the payment of 2 years' interest, and then after that, basically the town will be out of business in terms of any open space opportunities that came up in the future, absent some other funding coming in.
Mike, can I just interrupt you for that? Since it's what I was proposing was something on the order of 5% of your budget, of like $50,000. I'm not suggesting we got you by any means. So just so that you're not looking at the 2 years.
Right, right. Thank you.
And that's just me. I don't know what the others want.
Right. I should say also that the I see a difference between a capital budget and an operating budget, and I view the conservation fund as a capital budget item. And certainly, that's where it appears in the capital improvement plan. It's not an annual appropriation. The appropriations are made as project opportunities come up. And in fact, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave or Sue, but I think that the commission's budget has been cut on the annual, 10% cuts or whatever they are every year that they've been opposed. We have taken our fair share of the percentage cuts to the operating budget.
It has been impacted. I think your budget has been around $4,000 or $5,000 at the highest.
Yeah, I think it's been more like 3 lately, but.
Right, 3,500 or something.
Yeah, so a 10% cut is not real significant in our budget, but at the same time, we don't cost the town very much. But probably the most important reason, I think, for not using the funds appropriated for open space protection to pay off ongoing debt service is because we would be making present residents pay for benefits that future residents will enjoy. There is a pretty well accepted principle of financial management that says match asset life to the length of liabilities. So for example, you can get a 30-year loan on a house. In Germany, you can get a 100-year loan on a house. But no German would ever get a 100-year loan on a Mercedes. You get maybe a 5-6-year car loan. You match the life of the asset to the life of the loan. In the case of open space, we're limited. By statute, we can only go out 20 years, and in fact, our financial manager in most cases has us more along a 10-year timeline as being the most effective for the town. So what we're in effect doing is having people that are paying taxes 5, 10, 15, even 20 years from now, helping pay for open space that they will enjoy 20 years from now, which will affect, increase in value, instead of having the current taxpayers bear the burden for the benefits that future residents of the town are going to enjoy. It's the one asset that the town buys, unlike fire engines or police cars or highway trucks or even buildings, that will last forever. And so it's appropriate to fund it over a longer period of time. So I would rather see those future residents paying their fair share, because the open space effort will not go on forever. It's basically programmed to run about 15 years under the open space plan. It's being developed. It may be longer than that, depending on our success and our funding levels, but it won't be forever. So we ought to the extent we can, share that burden with people that are going to be in the town in the future. But I don't want to prejudice what the commission is going to decide here.
Tom, is there if I ask the question a little bit different way?
Sure.
Okay, so Mike, I get the whole thing on the bond and the capital committee and all that stuff and everything. You guys get money for land use tax every year, because we had a discussion earlier today about taking money from the cable fund to fund other things.
Right. So
if someone was to come to the deliberative session this coming March or whenever, February, whenever it's held, and came and said, you know what, town council asked the Conservation Commission if they could help out with some of the debt service. And Tom, I think, mentioned a number of like $50,000. But, and let's say you guys said, we're not interested. So then a whole group of people get together and they say, you know what, they weren't interested in helping. Let's take the land use tax away from them. And that's worth $200,000. And this is just me trying to read into where I think we're going, is if we can get some of the other departments to say, okay, we'll meet you part of the way. Hey, conservation, meet us part of the way. Cable, meet us part of the way. We can fund some other things and keep staffing at a level piece. I don't want to speak for Tom, but I don't think anybody's looking to take the money that you're using to buy open space. I think we're looking to see if we can find other revenues so that we can give some tax relief going into budget season. Does that sound right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
Well, yeah, but, you know, I'm looking also at, I just think it's fundamentally unfair to ask everybody else to bear a burden when the Conservation Commission doesn't. You know, if because of budget constraints in Washington, Concord, or just the downturn here, this town next year, everything else being static, is short $500,000 in revenue, either people are gonna have to make that up, or other things are gonna go down. Is it fair to just keep the Conservation Commission immune from anything? I just can't see that it's fair to do that. I mean, there's been no cuts, Mike, to conservation. Every year you get your LUC tax, whatever it is, you get it. Okay. Every year, the town pays the interest portion. Town's taxpayers pay the interest portion of the debt service. Basically, the bonds were as an advance to you. You got the money up front, and now we're paying for them. And in addition to paying the principal, the townspeople are paying the interest. So when I hear that from members of the commission and say, you know, we haven't been funded in a number of years, well, I look at that and I say, well, that's not necessarily true. First, it's not automatic that you should be funded. You got to make your case for your bond. But two, you are funded to the tune of probably about $500,000 a year from taxpayer money. So all I'm saying is, everybody else takes a hit. It's only fair that the Conservation Commission takes a hit.
I think it's not necessarily correct logic to talk about you and we and they. Everything that the town spent this money on is for the residents of the town. You know, I realize that in the development of an operating budget, there's a scramble between, you know, police and fire and library and everybody else to get to a limited bottom line. But the Conservation Commission, that funding of $3,000 isn't really.
But that's not your only funding, Mike. That's not your only funding. That's your operational for the commission. But you get more than that, and you know that.
Right. The money that comes in, I don't think in the last few years the land use change tax has been that much. I haven't seen it since 2008. Do you have any idea what's come in 2009?
I need to check, but it sticks in my mind, is in the last year, I think we received about 65,000 or something, but I've got to go back and recheck that. I just don't recall.
But I don't think it's $500,000, Tom.
But there's the interest on the bond, which is a current expense paid by the taxpayers. There's the principal on the bond too.
Right, just as there's interest on this building and, you know, the school buildings and
that's right.
everything else.
But to afford you the $8 to $10 million in bonds you got in prior years, that now comes with a cost, and the cost is not only the principal repayment, but the additional interest. So that's a cost the current taxpayers are paying.
Right, but we're not asking Dave to help out on the bond on this building.
All right, so.
I mean, I think there's a difference between operating budget and capital budgets and the way they're handled. But, you know, there's certainly
Okay, so
value to the price.
we can go philosophical all night, and I'm not willing to do that right now. So, you wanted to have a question, so go ahead. You had something you want to add to
I
this?
have a question for Sue. Sue, help me understand the accounting here, and the money in the conservation fund comes from a number of different sources. The land use tax is one. I mean, I think one time we were getting L-chip money. Or people make and I assume that money is all commingled?
In the special revenue fund, it's the land use change taxes, any interest, if their bank account earns any interest on those particulars, since they have a separate bank account for open space and conservation.
Okay, and there's no other monies that...
Grants.
So now,
bonds.
so the question is, so that money is commingled unless there's a separate spreadsheet of, you know, what each thing is. So let's say that we asked for some amount of money out of that to go back to the general fund first of all, we know that we've got legal advice saying that only the Conservation Committee can approve that. But secondly, are there restrictions or strings on some of that other money that it can't be used for general fund purposes? I mean, if we get money granted to us from the state, let's say, to go use for open space, and now we're spending it on a fire truck, whatever, is that going to be a problem for us? I mean, how do we keep ourselves clean from an accounting standpoint, or is that not an issue in terms of the money that's commingled in this fund? And if we were to take 5% of it, let's say, out, is there a mixture of that 5%? If that 5% represents $50,000, what's in that $50,000? Is it a mixture of land use money, a mixture of grants, a mixture of donations, whatever? And if I give Conservation Commission a $10,000 donation this year because I'm feeling really good about giving money away, and then I find that some of my donation was not used by the Conservation Commission, it was actually given and it was spent on grass seed or something for on the town common. I mean, does that create a problem for us in terms of accounting?
Accounting-wise, there isn't an issue as far as making the transfer, because anything that comes in goes into different line items. So there's a revenue line item for land use change tax, there's a line item for interest on investments, there's a line item for grants, there's a line item for bonds. So I can tell you exactly how much came into each line item in each fiscal year. As far as whether it's legal, that's a different story.
So if we're going to pull some money back out, we're going to have to be careful which line item that comes out of, because some of that money, I would imagine, has, I mean, it would be a misuse of a grant if we have grant to buy land.
It's a lot clearer now that the voters haven't approved bonds recently, because we always try to spend the bond money first, because there's arbitrage consequences to the IRS. So
Right.
the only exception is that if Mike gets a grant for, if there's $1 million purchase, and he receives a $500,000 grant, then of that $1 million, we'll spend the grant funds out, and then we'll spend $500,000 in bonding it. So I think right now it's fair to say that most of the money there is either land use change tax and some interest, because we were earning interest, not recently, but 3 or 4 years ago, some significant interest, no longer. So the vast majority of those funds currently are land use change tax revenues. We did have a donation from Kluger a number of years ago, and we expended that as well, just trying to clean it up to make sure.
So this issue doesn't present itself?
Not in today's environment. Now, if the town decides to start putting bonds again, then we're gonna get back to the process of making sure that we expend bonds first, just to get them off the books, so we won't run afoul of the IRS regulations.
So if we want to, do we just need a consensus of the council to say, to the Conservation Commission, we would like you to consider X? Okay.
Okay, so where are we at then? What are we asking specifically?
I don't know.
Exactly. I'm like, okay.
You know, I mean,
so we're having a discussion, so that's valid.
Right.
So, but where
Well, like I said, my proposal was $50,000, approximately 5% of the current balance. I mean, it may be 900,000, right? So if you want to take it as 5%, fine, 45,000, to be directed towards payment of, to the general fund, I guess, you know.
Okay, so how do we go about, what, do we have to have him make a motion?
Well, it's either a motion or a consensus, whichever way you present it. If it's approved by the council, then we'll just craft a letter.
And then send it to
Chairman's
them
signature to the conservation.
for their discussion.
Right.
Point of order, other members of the public wanting to speak to this, is that going to be allowed?
If it's brief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Step right up.
I don't know if Mike is done.
I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been involved in the open space process since the beginning, which was 15 years ago, maybe. maybe a little more, Tom.
the townspeople voted over and over at town meetings for bonds to support open space. I do not see that people like me and people like the majority of the townspeople at the time who voted themselves for money to go to open space for an open space fund to buy conservation land intended to have that money turned back to help the town with its budget crisis. I question the legality of this suggestion. I guess it is legal to ask for this money. I take exception, Mr. Chairman, to your asking for 5% of bonded money specifically for this purpose. I agree with Mr. Speltz that this is a capital.
You take exception with something I said? I said nothing.
Sorry, once in a while I think Tom is chair. I mean Mr. Frieda. Sorry about that, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I strongly take exception with that. I think that I have heard sometimes from some counselors an eagerness to take money from open space. Once you start taking money from open space, I don't know when you will stop. Also, the current use fee going to the Conservation Commission, that was voted on at town meeting as well in the late 1990s. I am just speaking up as a proponent of open space, that I would strongly oppose this, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else out there that would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Kimberly Hamilton, 16 Hemlock Street. I too feel that there is this movement to try to get the funds out of that Conservation Commission and the open space funds. I don't think that was the intent of the taxpayers. I'm a taxpayer, and when there's this discussion of we don't think the taxpayers should have to pay this debt, the interest on this debt, that's what I want to do. I'm a taxpayer, and I want those bonds, and I want that interest paid. And I don't want to come back in the back door and see the money taken out to pay that interest. So I can't say that I can speak broadly on it, but I feel very strongly about this.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Okay. Back to the council.
So just for clarification purposes.
Yep.
We can ask, we can't force anybody to do anything, pretty much on any board.
That's
No,
correct.
you can ask the conservation.
So, and they can come back and say, you know what, this is how we feel about it, and, but thank you, but we're sorry, but thank you. And that's, all right. Is that all we're asking for? Is for an opinion from the Conservation Commission about how they feel about participating in Tom's suggestion? Is that just what we're simply what we're asking for?
That's my only proposal at this point, is to ask the Conservation Commission to consider making a debt service payment, a payment to the general fund. Again, I would either characterize it as 5% of the current balance or $50,000.
Okay. I mean, I think I know what they're going to say, but, hey.
I understand.
I think we got a pretty good idea.
I'm sure you're probably right. But I think it's a question that needs to be asked,
So, Mr. Chair, can I make a motion to have that presented to the Conservation Commission?
Absolutely.
So
just make a motion then, so. Tom?
I just made the motion.
Actually, you can make the motion. It was your motion to begin with, and just have him second, if that's what you want to do.
Well, Dave said we could do it one of two ways, either by consensus or just...
I would just take a consensus.
All right, so that's fine, so we'll cut the motion out. So your plan is
My
to ask
proposal
them...
is to ask the Conservation Commission to transfer $50,000 to the general fund.
So I would ask that you consider in your proposal that if we're going to ask, we ask one time and we don't go back again. This will be a one-time ask. You know, if they say no, then we're done, at least for this council, for this year.
Oh, I wouldn't go and ask them again if they said no, no.
Okay, just, you know, I'm just trying to make sure that.
Said no, they said no.
So Dave,
I have no issue with asking a question of anybody.
So Dave, in your letter, as we just did with that, with the cable studio, if you could just add that this council is just asking for this year, not in, you know, not in future years, because we can't bind other councils, so. All right, so that's what he wants to do. So you're okay with it, Tom?
Sure, we can ask.
If we took a vote, I would vote no.
Okay. Joe, you okay with it? or
Yeah,
not?
I'm okay with it, yeah.
Obviously?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I just mainly want to get this moved off the table and let's move on,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah. So you have a consensus, Dave?
Good. Take care of it.
All right. Okay. Thank you, folks, for having your input. We appreciate it. We're moving into new business. Ordinance number 2011-06 is relative to an amendment to the zoning ordinance relating to rezoning map 15, lot 97, Clark and Jacks Bridge Road.
Waive reading and motion to adopt. Oh, excuse me. This is only a first reading, excuse
Yeah.
me. I'd say waive reading until the public hearing.
Okay. And when's the public hearing on this?
11th. July 11th.
11? Okay.
It looks like it's gonna be a busy
I
day.
second that motion.
All right. So we got a motion and a second to move that to a public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Chair votes affirmative to move that to public hearing. Order number 2011-14, relative to the expenditure of reclamation trust funds for drop-off center improvements.
Waive reading and move to adoption.
Second.
All right, second by Tom Dolan.
I think it's for discussion that we should just mention that we will be directing the treasurer to expend the amount of $4,767.40.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. None? Okay. All those in favor of motion, order number 2011-14, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Chair votes affirmative. So that's all set, Dave. Okay, approval of minutes.
Motion we approve as presented in our packet.
Second.
I have an edit.
Edit, one edit.
Small one, Margot. Page 4, line 152. Aesthetics is misspelled. Sorry. I usually send you those in the email. I had a meeting up with that, but that's
All right,
it.
So that's it, okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes of June 6, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Chair votes affirmative. Okay, liaison reports. We'll start with Mr. Farrell.
I don't believe I have anything at this time unless you want me to report on playoffs and umpires. I think I'm all set.
Okay.
All set?
Okay. All right, Dave, town manager's report.
Nothing additional this time, thanks.
All right. We have nothing on board committee reappointments and appointments. So our next meeting is July 11th, 2011, at 7 PM here. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes affirmative, 5-0. Let the record show to the Derry News on the back that we were done at 9:40 PM.